A cold caller, an account executive, two founders, a dad, and a LinkedIn junkie all walk into a bar, except they're actually all really just one person. If any of that resonated with you, then you've tuned into the perfect episode of Rookie and the Closer, where I'm the rookie and my co host Maddie's the closer. And today we have a very special guest with us, John Ciannello. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hey, I like the authentic Italian pronunciation of the last name. That's good stuff.
I probably should have asked you how to pronounce it first, but I
No,
just
there are some people in the New York, New Jersey area and Italy who are very happy. They will be very happy to hear you say it that way. We grew up saying Cianello, but Cianello flows much better off.
Ciannello. Okay, I like it.
That's like someone saying, "Oh, I went to Cipriani for lunch," and you're like, "Gross, dude. Like, what are you even fucking saying right now?" I'm excited. I'm excited. We were prepping for this, and AI came up, and as someone that's married to an engineer that's doing a whole heck of a lot of prompting right now, I think we're gonna have a really fun conversation. So I'm fired up.
Love it, love it. So John, why don't you kick us off with like, why did you get into sales? Was it something you kind of always thought about your whole life? Did you do it like part time first, or how'd you get started?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I don't know, honestly, right? Like it kind of feel like a lot of it just happens. Like, I guess I'll sell, but not really. When I was a kid, I was very outgoing. When I was very young, like I would, my dad would, we lived in the town that my parents grew up in, and I grew up there, and so he would use the football field house, which was at a park in town, to work out, and the playground was right next door, so I would just go like out to the playground, and he'd poke his head out to check on me, and I was like 4 years old, like talking to somebody's parents, like having like a conversation, very, very Italian with the hands. And So I always had an outgoing personality, which I think is, one of the, if you're going to have a natural trait that serves well in sales, that's helpful. And then, I guess I had a knack for understanding, how to present value, or how to see value in something and then communicate that to somebody. But then really what got me into it was sort of a couple things. Like I said before when we were talking, I did this program called Praxis. So I went to college for a year. I just didn't love it. I did well as a student. For you sticklers out there who are like, oh, you couldn't make it. No, I did well. Um, I just didn't like it. For me, it was kind of not sure. Where was this exactly going to take me? Like, what am I doing? I feel, it's one thing to go through adversity in life and to go through hard things. It's another thing to pay, $30,000 a year to go through that adversity. That's just kind of foolish. And so I heard about this program, and I was like, oh well, I'm gonna give it a try. It sounds cool, and I did that, and that led me to like a small vending machine, sports focused vending machine company that was kind of cool, and I did some selling there, and that was like my first like real experience with it. Just selling machines to people every once in a while, dealing with partner companies, placing machines. So not necessarily selling, but maybe pitching a school on, hey, we'd love to put a machine in your school. Maybe blah blah blah. Why that might be cool for you guys. But then I also helped pitch some investors on they were like raising around. I guess I did. I didn't know what I was. I was like I had no idea what that is. I was like, well, I guess it makes sense to me, and that was cool. So, but the real reason I would say now that I'm a few years in, to that, or I guess more than a few years of getting older. Um, I would say it's one of the best ways to serve people when you do it well, right? Because whether you like it or not, people pay for things, and things cost money, and they pay for things that are valuable to them. And so if you can be able to communicate value effectively, and share things with people, and be able to connect with people, and put dots together, I think sales is one of the best ways to do that. And so that's kind of like what got me going. And it also, I don't play sports anymore. And when I first was an SDR after that first job, I was like, all right, this feels like a sport. Like I'm gonna get really good at this. Like that's the goal. Like, and I think that's what kind of kept me going.
Wow.
I love to hear it. So I'm terrible at double clicking in, but like talk a little bit more about Praxis because we had Andrew on last time and he went into a program that helps former professional athletes get into
Sure.
sales. And I think this is becoming a theme across the podcast is like there are resources available. You don't have to do this all on your own. We say all the time sales is a team sport. So talk
Yeah.
about that program and what you got out of it and who you think it could potentially
Yeah,
help.
I was listening to a bit of that one. Did he do Shift Group?
Hmm.
Did I hear him say that? Yeah. I had heard of them before. Yeah, so Praxis, I'll try to keep it concise. But Praxis was kind of born out of a guy named Isaac Morehouse and a guy named TK Coleman and a few others. Um, Kind of saw that a lot of young people were dissatisfied with their college experience, and not landing jobs. And this was in, 2013, end of 2013, and the first cohort was 2014. Um, they hadn't been landing jobs, and or maybe just like weren't really enjoying the actual the experience itself, and the outcomes or lack thereof. And they're like, well, there's got to be something better we can do. There's got to be something that, at least for a niche group who has this shared mindset. And so they put together, the early workings of this curriculum where, you get some training, go through some modules, understand, the big overarching themes of value creation and, value propositions, exchanges of value. And then they actually like put together this awesome, like, they really, this was like one of the, not early, but, early-ish Silicon Valley where, people were going out there and trying to like land a bunch of jobs in San Francisco or back in New York City and partnered with companies. And then people did 6-month apprenticeships with
Nice.
these companies. And a lot of times, it was a BDR and SDR job. And so for anybody listening who's not in sales or been around tech sales even, because you could be in sales and not know this, but that's a sales development representative or business development representative. Often interchangeable. Some argue they mean different things, but it's basically interchangeable. And so one of the companies that people partnered, that a lot of people ended up doing an apprenticeship with was PandaDoc.
Mm.
Um, when PandaDoc, and this was before, like well before they, got their $1 billion valuation and, kind of became a unicorn. I don't know if you guys would know Jed Marley on LinkedIn, but I think he's got like 50,000 followers now. He became like go-to-market engineer, but anyway, he's a good friend of mine. He did Praxis, and he got his start at PandaDoc. He's like 17 or 18 when he was an SDR there, and I think he was the SDR manager at like 19 years old.
Wow.
So anyway,
Wow.
it still exists today. I actually work there still, and it's slightly different. We've gone through some different iterations, but people are still going through training and curriculum to develop some skills and be able to document those skills, and be in a cohort of people who are like-minded and trying to go get started, go get after it. And they're still landing jobs, right? And it's slightly different. We don't do the apprenticeship thing, but it's similar. So it's very geared towards, I would say, like two main buckets historically. Those who generally come from maybe a homeschool background or like some kind of like alternative, maybe not what the majority is used to, and they already kind of think like, I don't think college is a great fit for me because X, Y, Z. And then also those who maybe are in college or did college or recent grads and like, I'm not finding a job. I'm not seeing how I can transfer these skills. And maybe there's something else I can do to kind of be like a jump start. And so Praxis kind of speaks to those two groups very well. And yeah, I mean that's a little concise. I tried to keep it concise. I know it wasn't super
No,
concise, but
it's
that's a summary.
it's amazing. I mean, yeah, I think that like a lot of what I'm hearing there is you have to start somewhere and you're willing to get help and put in the work.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Go, David.
So when you started as the SDR at that company and you first got on the phones, was it like easy for you because of how extroverted you are and like your previous sales experience, or was it like, oh shit, this kind of sucks, cold calling a bunch of people that don't want to speak to me?
You mean at the tech company, right? I mean, I could
Yeah,
speak.
I think you said fourth was fourth you
Yes,
said?
yeah, yeah, fourth. Um, so I actually there both, and I'll explain why. So there was the normal, and to be clear, like I think it's incredibly normal and expected for that to be ridiculously uncomfortable. I mean, it's kind of like it's like a muscle, even still, if I go a long time where I haven't cold called, I get really nervous cold calling, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I literally have no reason to be nervous. I have made thousands of dials, and I have no reason to be nervous. But if you don't do it for long enough, and you feel like like what if there, it's a big paralysis by analysis thing. But early on, there was the nerves. There was kind of like, man, like if they tell me off, like what if they cursing me? Like, like you get like, ah. But I actually think something that really helped me was having been in that like more startup, small company. I was driving vending machines around in a box truck and learning how to take them in and out of the truck and calling people and talking to so and so at a sports company or sports drink company, kind of doing a little bit of everything. And I was 20 or 19 or 20 when I took that job, and so I did that for about 2 years. And I was like, oh, I guess this is just how it is. Like this is just what work is like. And then I got into like a bigger company. I mean, it wasn't massive, but it was pretty big, and we probably had over 1,000 U.S. employees and a bunch more internationally. And so there was structure, and my manager was excellent. He's one of my best friends today. Shout out Jack Knight in case he ever sees this. Um, and I was like, oh, so like I just have to do this thing. Like this is what I'm all day. Like I just do this, you know. And I think that that really helped me because I had this expectation in my mind from having come from the previous role where it was like, oh, this is just how it is. And then getting into an environment where there's more structure and it's more, it's a more serious operation. And when I say serious, I just mean more well developed. And that actually really helped me because it was kind of like, oh, I can just get really dialed in, pun intended, focused on this.
Yeah.
And this is my job, and I'm just going to get really good at cold calling and mix in some email and LinkedIn, but I'm just going to get really good and focused at cold calling in this vertical at this segment. Um, and I think that that was something that was a huge unlock for me. And so that I guess, that could be helpful for anybody who would listen to this or in general who is thinking about like, hey, what can I do with my career? I think there's some other opportunities that I can leverage, but I don't have any experience in, let's say, tech sales, and I want to be in tech sales. Well, like there's so many ways in life and in your career to make things transferable. And like for going into sales, particularly in tech or something that's I would say like tech adjacent even, um, there's so many skills that are transferable. Like just being somebody in a business who's like willing to wear a bunch of different hats and kind of like just expect like that's just what's expected of me, or that's what I expect of myself. That transfers very well when you get into a role where you have a sort of singular purpose and function, and you can just really kind of like chill out and be like, okay, like I can just focus on this, and I don't have to worry about driving vending machines somewhere in 3 hours. So I mean, I hope that answers your question. So it was a little bit of both, but kind of I hope I explained the reasons why.
No, yeah, that was good. And then to kind of add to that, what made like did you go to Praxis after that? Like just because you were super passionate about like being in Praxis yourself, or were you kind of looking for? I know a hot topic is like going from BDR to AE, and you became an AE at Praxis. Did you see like the opportunity to become an AE there? Is that why you went there?
Yeah, I mean, it was two or threefold. I did want to be an AE. I'd been performing well as an SDR at Fourth, and larger companies. It's sometimes a little bit of like a more rigid path to growth. Whereas if you're at a startup, it's like whoever's getting it done is just getting it done. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm glad
Um,
you mentioned that because I'm gonna tag into on that when you're done.
yeah.
Those differences.
Um, and I wanted an AEC, and they had like a specific growth path, and I'm just like I'm not a corporate guy, and I kind of have come to terms with that. And I was gunning for a position there, and one of my AEs had left. I was maybe there. I had been there a few months, and it had some success. Maybe I think I held a couple records for a little while, like most meetings in a day and meetings in a week, and or something like that. And I was like, all right,
Dang
well,
it.
uh, I've I've got some experience here, and I think I understand the vertical pretty well. And so and so's leaving, and maybe there's an opportunity here. So I got to put a pitch together and wanted it, and they were like, oh no, it's just like not how it works, and that annoyed me a little bit. But that's just because like it's a little bit how I am. But I didn't leave. I was still planning to stay there. I liked it a lot. But then the CEO of Praxis at the time, who was a good friend of mine, he was like, "Hey, what do you think about, like, kind of unbeknownst to him, like, what do you think about coming over here to sort of oversee sales and marketing, or step into a role where you can transition into overseeing sales and marketing?" And I was like, "Well, let's talk about it. That sounds pretty cool." And we did, and it was just a good opportunity. And then the second fold there would be that it's just something I really cared about and wanted to be able to impact others with. So it was kind of a no brainer at the time. And as much as I could have stayed on the tech sales path, like, okay, like, promote to like a junior AE, do that for a while, which would have been great. I'm a little bit like, sometimes like a hopeless romantic with with career and stuff. Like, I don't know. I love the crazy story and the growth opportunity. So I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. So that's kind of what led me over there, and it was great to be able to move into a hybrid seat where I got to do some closing and kind of own a pipeline end to end, which was cool. So that's what led me over there.
Sweet. And we'll eventually get there that you're now a founder, and like that's just something as someone that's been in tech for a long time, it's just cool to say. It just feels cool. You're like
Yeah,
I'm the founder and CEO.
yeah,
And I think a lot of what I'm hearing, and now I'm older. I'm almost 40 years old. Like I think it's really important to know yourself and know what you want, but also know that things change and you reserve the right to change your mind. And so, like, when you said dialed in, I feel like that's like a huge metaphor where it's like we're always trying to, like, I had a therapist once that would say, like, you can't just stand in front of the thermostat and just, like, try to perfectly dial. It's like put on a fucking sweater. If you get hot, take your fucking sweater off, move on with your life, right? So I think a lot of what I'm hearing is you're like, oh, it was a startup and it went great and I loved doing all these things and I got this great experience. And then I moved in and I was like, wow, this is nice. I can just do one thing and just get really good at this one thing. And then it's like, well, no, now I think I want to do more than one
yeah,
thing. And maybe a little bit of a smaller company, right? So I think it's like our careers are long. And for me, I've always been a startup person. I realize that I'm not a 0 to 1 startup person. I'm like a 1 to 2. So it's like I like a smaller, more agile company where I can get away with not following every single rule all the time.
yeah,
And like, but I also want health insurance and maternity leave. And it's like,
yeah.
and that's why I haven't started my own company.
And
I
money.
like employee.
It's nice to
I
have.
like money. I like
Oh,
security. I like being an employee. I like being, on the leaderboard for closed revenue. But I think the big thing too is you said analysis paralysis. Like that's so huge. Like I think a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that do this where you try to call it worry planning. Like you try to just like think of everything and then you're like, okay, now it's perfect. I'm going to go for it. And if it doesn't work out, you're just so disheartened. So it sounds like a lot of your personality, John, is like you're just like a yes guy. You're like, I'm not going to be cavalier. I'm not going to be irresponsible. But when I get an opportunity, I trust myself. And then a lot of it, I think, goes back to just your education and just how you got into sales, where you're like, and I say this on every fucking episode, you're your own product. Like, I know I can bring value to the organization. I know I can. I'm
yeah,
confident in myself. I'm confident in my ability to be helpful and to serve people, whether that's in the organization or its customers.
yeah,
Um, so I think a lot of it is like you can't plan for everything. Perfect is the enemy of good. And you got to kind of just go and then you crush it. And then every once in a while, you lift up your head and say, okay, I feel good about what I've done. What's next? So, how is there any sort of like mental schedule for you? Like, I have an hourglass on my, it reminds me back there that like sometimes you just got to tip the hourglass over and just execute and just like get into execution mode, whether that's a call block or
yeah.
that's I'm not going to reconsider my career for the next 2 years. I'm going to stay in this job. Like, do
Sure.
you have you found you have any sort of cadence where you kind of reevaluate what you want and like what's next for you?
No. I'm I don't really have a cadence. I think I'm trying to get better about. I had been trying to get better about keeping that window longer for myself. I will say this. I was just explaining it to somebody. I mean, I spend a lot of time in prayer, in consideration, and could afford to spend more. But I think I do like to try to do like personal audits every so often, sort of kind of just like off vibes. Like, all right, time for an audit.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I feel that.
and I think what I do with like I was just doing one today. Like, okay, like I'm building this thing. Effectively, it's an AI service company. I didn't build like an AI model or anything like that, or like build like a SaaS product. I mean, not that I not that I couldn't set out to build a SaaS product, and that's a testament to like where the technology is today because I'm not a developer. But
No one has
um,
to know Python anymore. It's you. We're all. You can be a
yeah,
product.
I mean, it would be
You know.
good probably to still know a little. Like I should probably figure out a little, but you don't need to stand something up. But anyway, we'll kind of be okay. Like, what am I setting out? What's my long-term goal? Like, should I go, explore this option, or should I boogie down and really get into this option? And I was talking to a friend, but then one of the questions I asked was like, okay, well, what if this certain thing changed, or if this happened, I feel like that would solve, maybe some of the tension I'm feeling, which I'm sorry I'm speaking so vaguely. I'm just like trying to give it as a nice analogy. Like, so like, let's say I was thinking about like, looking at a working for a company, or just like really getting dialed in on building the thing I'm building right now.
Hmm.
And, it might be like, okay, like I've got a solid resume. I bet I could command income that I'd be happy with. So, I could probably go start putting in the work to like, go apply and go through interview processes or pitch somebody on something. That's cool too. If you could just pitch somebody on something, bypass their interview process, that's nice. Um, but I was like, really what I'm seeking there is something that's more like, okay, like I'm really looking for some kind of financial security or projection. And so if I happen to get two clients tomorrow, they're like, hey, let's do a 10K, 10K deal, each of them, I'd be like, okay, great. I'm not going to even think about the job. And so like, with that kind of exercise is like, well, then really I'm not looking for a job and wanting to go work for a different company. I'm looking for, the one of the results that comes from that. And I have a thing that, if I do a couple things differently or put in some more effort here, some specific efforts, probably gets me that same outcome, and I'm probably happier with it. And so,
Yeah.
that's the kind of audit I do every once in a while. I mean, I'm no genius or guru with it, but that's something that works for me, is like to, okay, ask myself some questions, um, kind of take a look at everything I have in front of me, project wise or things I'm working on, and figure out like, okay, like, it's a very sales question, like what am I really wanting? Like, you say you want a job, but like nobody wants a job. They want something from that. Like maybe they like the
Yep.
company, or maybe they want to make money. I mean, I would hope you want to make money if you're having a job. Like that just makes sense, right? Like, but
Especially
like,
sales.
yeah, like, so but you're not really, it's not the job itself that you want usually. I mean, sometimes it is, and that can be good, but there's things that come along with it. Like you mentioned benefits, right? Like health insurance and leave and things like that. Like it's all nice. It's like, okay, like these are things that I am taking into account of my long-term goals or even short-term goals. And so that's an exercise I do and I try to do somewhat regularly, maybe, once a month, every other month, where I'm just like, okay, like what am I doing? I've been spending a lot of time in Cloud Code, and I gotta like figure out what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm married to an engineer, and it's his kind of like our family mantra is like, what are we optimizing for? Right? So
Yeah,
like you can't optimize for everything, and you're allowed to change your mind. I like to say God invented seasons for a reason, to remind us that like things are allowed to flex and change. But I think, yeah, a lot of what I'm hearing is like it can be uncomfortable. Like this is the theme of the podcast, right? Is like get comfortable being uncomfortable, where it's like, what do you actually want? Why do you want that? Is that what you really want, or what you think you're supposed to want? And
yeah,
it can be really difficult, right? And it's like I think there's two parts to it, right? So like I live in Arizona now. I love America. I think a lot about Lewis and Clark, where it's like they knew that they were just going to go until they got to the fucking ocean. They had no idea what they were going to come up against. And I
sure,
think it's this constant recalibration of seeing where you want to go and knowing why it's important and motivating yourself, and then looking down at your feet and making sure you don't trip over a root. And it can be
yeah,
very exhausting to do
yeah.
that. And like, David, you made a huge decision where you're like, I'm gonna get into sales. Like I'm gonna do this. So like what's your why, and like what keeps you making all of the hundreds of cold calls that you like? Do you have a moment, David, where you're like, okay, I know where I want to be, and I know this is the path I need to take to get there? Because it's like I think of like the Batman movie where it's like you must jump like the child without the rope. Like I think a lot of people are like, I know where I need to go and I know what I need to do to get there, but I don't want to do it. So then they convince
Yeah.
themselves they don't really want the thing at the end. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think you can have, and I say this all the time when people ask me for talk track advice or anything like that. Like you could have the best plan in the world and the best vision, and you could be the most talented person, like all that stuff. But I think if you don't have a powerful why, all of that means nothing, and you'll probably never make it, anywhere. So for me, I would say I guess I never talked about this on the podcast, but before I started at Foley for the last 10 years, I basically got sick. I have an autoimmune disease, and I basically had to work in a family business because I didn't really have another option, and I was basically broke for a long time. So I always told myself, once I found something that I was able to do physically, I was going to double, triple, quadruple, 10x down on it and do whatever it takes to make it work. And that's basically what happened when I got to Foley. Like, I didn't care how many dials I had to do to be successful. Yesterday I did 520 dials. Like, I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes. So that's my why. And I think if you don't have a why, you're just going through the motions.
Well, and so talk about that why though, where it's like, is it that you want to just be able to hold a job that if you were, I don't even know, like it's like I can't be a roofer,
Right, right.
but then but like, yeah, like is it just that you're like, I don't know. I think what I'm asking is like, is it just that you want the job so that you're not broke? Do you want to feel a certain way? Like, what is it that makes you feel like this is where you're supposed to be?
Yeah, that's a great follow-up question. Because so basically, to get even more vulnerable on the podcast, great question.
This is what we do
through,
here.
through all
Yeah.
that time, my wife stayed with me, and we even lived with my parents for like a decade. And I was like, I really want to have a family with this girl, but we don't have enough money to make that happen, especially in very expensive Long Island. And I was finally able to move out of my parents' house 2 months ago, and we're on track to hopefully have kids, eventually, God willing, all the above. But yeah, it was really just I wanted to have a life with my partner, and this was able to give it to me.
Yeah. Having it's such an interesting time right now, and like I want to hear your opinion on this too, John, because I know it sounds like you have a really
Sure.
big network. Like there are a lot of people I think that are just pissed that you have to do stuff to get stuff. You know what I mean? Where it's like, like I just, and it's for me, candidly, and this is vulnerable. It's hard for me because I don't have to work. I don't have to. My husband does very well. And like when I had my baby and I got terrible postpartum depression, I couldn't work. I was suicidal. It was the darkest time of my life. And all of that was terrible, but honestly the hardest part for me was like so much of my personality and my self-worth comes from doing well at work. Since I was 13, 14 years old working at a grocery store, I was like, I bag groceries better than fucking anyone. And I knew it. And I want to be teacher's pet, and I want people to like me, and I want to do a good job. And it was never even about the money. I don't check my commission statement. I want to know, did I hit quota? Like, and there's so much of that was like, it was really, really difficult for me. And like now it's because I don't have to work, I have to remind myself, to your point, John, why do I want a job? And it's because I like social interaction. I like being a helper girl, as I say to my daughter. I like delivering value to people. I like feeling good about myself. So I think it's like you have to have your personal why, but then you have to also understand that like, no one can want it for you. So like how do you feel about that, John? Because the people that are in praxis, I mean, they're the people that are like, I know I need to work. I know I need to pass the
Yeah.
time and like deliver value, right? So like, is that a personality thing? Can you teach that? Like, what do you think about all that?
No, I think you can teach it. I think some people are just, maybe more naturally predisposed to that. I think it's an ideology thing. I think it depends on the environment you spend time in. I think it's human nature to just want things. I don't think it's human nature to want to work for those things, or at least it's not the like current state of most cultures, or at least Western culture. A lot of I think there's a lot. I have a lot of strong opinions, but I'll keep them to myself.
Yeah, I
But
feel you. I'm
um,
with you.
um, I think we've been propagandized for a long time, in a lot of ways. One of those ways being like, like wanting to consume and not recognizing the value of value creation and value exchange.
Contributing.
Um, so So I don't know. I think it's tough, right? And you, like understanding like your why. That's been a big thing for me for a long time. I like that you guys talked about that. And thank you both for getting vulnerable there. It's nice to get to know you both that way. But yeah, I think that that's really important though too, and I think that plays into it. So I mean, I'll share like a little bit about kind of like why I do anything I do. You didn't ask, but I'm going to share anyway.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I grew up in a great family. My brother grew up with an autoimmune condition, and a whole bunch of conditions and illnesses and stuff. And he was he probably he was close to dying a lot. He's 2 years younger than me. He's doing quite well now. But that was tough, right? Just to see that. And we grew up in a great church, not far from us. And so like that was always important to me. My faith was always really important to me. And then when I was in high school, I had a lot of friends that from church even that like they kind of like did the church thing, but then they were also like pretty interested in going and drinking or smoking or doing whatever. And so for me, like I hadn't been, but I felt this tension, and so I just was like, whatever, I can't do it anymore. Like I'm just gonna like let loose. And so I lived a few years, high school, and then that one year I was in college, like I just like to like candidly, I just like to drink. Like I like to drink. Um, I like Natty Light and all that crap, and just like putting them back, and kind of like the party life. But I was also an athlete, so like I was playing sports, and I was a decent athlete. And then when I went to college, it was a D3 school, and I was supposed to play football there. And sorry, this is gonna make me sound
Oh,
young, or
you're
maybe
great.
age you guys, but I graduated high school in 2020, and so it was kind of a weird year to graduate high school, especially in the
Yeah.
Northeast. And so I was at this D3 school to play football, and our season got canceled, and I was kind of like, oh, this is miserable. Like this is not fun at all. Like we got like people tracking us down. I got to get COVID tested every week. Like all this nonsense. Strong opinions again. Sorry, but
Good. I was in
but
LA, so like I get it.
but during that time I was just like keeping up the party thing. But I really feel like the Lord was tugging on me during that time and kind of brought me back. And my parents had like gone to this other church for a little while I was away, and like so I visited that church. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with like some like church words, but there's a word called charismatic. And so this church was a little more charismatic, which means they were
Yep.
very very much so like focused
Let it be
on like
fun.
the gifts, well, also like the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Like the word, root in Greek is charisma, which is or maybe a shorter version, but it basically means gift, right? And so very much so in like the supernatural ways of the Lord. And so like this guy like got a got a word, I believe, like a prophetic word for me, and like gave it specifically. And I'm good friends with this guy now. He's a pastor, and like it was about something I was like struggling with, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. Like, what am I like? This guy is like, how does this guy know this? Like, I gotta get out of here. But anyway, long story short, I came back to faith, and like God turned my life around. Praise Jesus. But for me, like that's just the core of it, right? Like that's kind of like everything. Like there's so many unanswered questions in life. Like why does this happen? Why does that happen? Why doesn't this happen? Who am I supposed to be? Why do we struggle? Why do we go through these things? And each time I've recognized this a place of solace and peace in Jesus. And so I don't mean to preach at you guys, but
Hey,
just since we're
dude, no,
talking about whys,
you're gonna
um,
love what I had to say next.
uh,
So you're
um,
good. Keep going.
so so that's the core foundational why for me is just like, okay, like I'm living to serve you, Lord, and I want to do it well. And I want to be walking in the things you have for me, and what I'm supposed to be doing, and how, and in turn I want to serve people. Like I want to serve your creation well. And so like I mentioned earlier, I'm married, I have two kids. And so for that, it's them, with them it's like these are people I got to take care of. Like we live on my income, and just like, well, they got to eat and they need a place to live. And so every day it's kind of like, this is when I landed my first SDR job. Like I was my wife was pregnant. I guess I was 22 or 23, and and I like Jack, who I mentioned is a good friend of mine now. I remember telling him like, like I think like something that sets me apart here is that like if I'm having days where I have nothing in the tank, for me, like it doesn't matter because I have to do this for other people who are dependent on me, and that'll keep me going. And I think that sets me apart uniquely from maybe some of the other people my age who are recent grads or whatever. Because no knock on them, they just aren't in this situation. Like I got to eat, so and my family, and more importantly, my family has to eat. So I'm just gonna go. And those are the things that kind of motivate me. So again, I'm sorry, that's a long-winded answer,
God,
but
never apologize. No, do not apologize. And David knows, so I've been going through some stuff where hi, my name is Maddie, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm a recovering drug addict. And I did not grow up religious at all. Like my mom, if you're watching this, I love you. Feng Shui is awesome. Love tarot cards. All of that's great. But I spent like the majority of my life until I was probably 30, 32, just thinking like this is my responsibility. Like if I'm not happy, if I'm not successful, I'm doing something wrong. Go so far as I'm a bad person, I don't deserve. It was very isolating to not believe in anything other than your own fucking work ethic and like
sure.
And my husband is religious, and he was like, listen, just you need something. There's all these books that I, it's like Eckhart Tolle, all of it. It's just like if you don't have it, it's because you're not manifesting hard enough. And it's just it was a lot of pressure. So I met Jesus because I was like, I'm going to turn this into a research project because that's just who I am. I was like, I'm at all the world religions. I'm going to research them. I'm going to practice them. Whichever one makes me feel the best, I'm just going to do that. And having a personal relationship with Jesus as a role model was like so relaxing, and every time I get further away and every time I hide from God, I find that I become a bigger piece of shit. Where it's like I just want to like hide, and it's like I feel convicted. Like I was saying, like it's hard for me to cold call. It's very hard for me because I have a lot of experience. I've closed tens of millions of dollars of deals in software, and I get to this point where it's like I don't want to do this, and then like you just reminded me, John, like I feel convicted now, where it's like I should feel grateful that I have this opportunity, and it's like. We tell my daughter every day, like, honey, you got to go to school because we're practicing being brave. We're practicing doing things that we don't want to do, and we're doing them anyway. And like, I feel like when I first started, praying more and talking to God more, it was like, oh my God, like my job is a gift from God to let me practice being the type of person I want to be in like a kind of more low stakes environment. If I get fired or the company I work for closes, I'll go get another job. I know I will. But like I need to be grateful and have this kind of mindset where it's like, no, you deserve this, and also you're going to earn it every day. And it's I got sober again recently, and I think a lot of that was just me kind of having this pity party where it was like, life is hard. I don't want it to be hard. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to do the audits. I don't want to talk to God and ask for help. I don't want to be the type of person that even needs help. And like I think that what you learn from any religion or philosophy is that we can't do this alone. We're all in it with each other. You're going to have hard seasons where you need to ask for help, and you're going to have really easy seasons where you get to give people more help. And you just have to like flex with it a lot. So yeah, I think a lot of what we're talking about here is like your job is a gift, and you don't need to kill yourself. Like Andrew talked last week, that changed my fucking life when he was like, yeah, I try to do like 9 out of 10 every day.
Yeah.
I heard him say that. It was cool.
Like, you're allowed to do that? Like I'm such an all or nothing person, which very much manifested itself in my partying. I'm gonna be a good girl today, and I'm gonna be a bad girl tomorrow. Diet starts on Monday. You know what I mean? And I think that like sales can really and entrepreneurship, like no one told you had to start a company, John. No one told you had to do that.
No.
But you're like, I think
I would prefer I didn't.
Yeah. So like talk to us a little bit about that. Like what spoke to you and made you say like, this is a need and I can fill the need?
Sure. Okay. I had no intentions of preaching at you guys, but this one is minorly spiritual. But
he talks. We're just terrible at listening. It's fun.
So I really kind of dove into AI, but at first, maybe in like mid to late 2024, I hadn't touched it much. I like to write, and I fancy myself a good writer, and I was like, I'm not touching it. Like, that's stupid. Like, I can write better than that. Because for the most part, like the general consumer usage was like writing, right? And
Totally.
it changes every day now. But um, then I was like, I should check it out. And so I started using it a little bit, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then I started using it like with work, like, oh, this is actually very helpful for like researching for, if I have a demo to run, or like, if I have a call to get on, like just prepping the call, or kind of like grading the call after the call. Like, it was just pretty good. And so I'd gotten pretty decent with it and could use it in some workflows and things. And then in like early this year, my daughter was born in January, and then right around that time, I was like, there's some new developments, and people were like doing more like agentic and local AI, and um, pro, proactive as opposed to reactive AI. So people came out with like OpenClaw, and then now like the bigger one is Hermes Agent, and so I was like, it seems like a little too far. But then I had actually prayed about it, and because I had a conviction about AI where I was like, it feels like it feels like this could be very bad in many ways, like for a society. And I think there's some like obvious conclusions you can draw there, just about even just like laziness, or like kind of handing away your own
Mm.
personal agency, and like the robots taking over. But I think
Slash, no one
there's
can read anything. That's my
yeah,
biggest problem.
yeah,
Is like I just don't check its work ever. It's like,
yeah.
yeah,
So I saw these things, and I was like, and now it's getting very good. Like, people can use this for serious evil and harm, and I just felt like the Lord was kind of like, well, you abstaining from using it's not going to stop anybody from using it for evil. And I was like, oh, okay, that's actually good. And it's preferable that people who are walking with the Lord have an understanding of this and can use it. And I was like, all right, like, I'm going to take a look. And then I just started like discovering new use cases. And I was kind of like, quickly I realized, like, this is the longest lever that
yup. Well
we've maybe
said.
ever had.
Well
Um,
said. Yes.
and it'd be silly not to pull it. Like, like, it'd be silly not to pull it. And so I just toyed around with different use cases, and some friends who run businesses, like, I built them some automations, and that was cool. But then I found one that I was like, well, this one seems really cool. Like, my wife used to work in this commercial real estate property tax space, and so I kind of had an understanding of um, like what all went into her job as far as like the data aggregation part, and like really like boring. Like, nobody is sitting looking at this and being like, this is excellent work. Like, I love doing this, and it's important work, but it takes up a lot of their time, and it takes away from time where they can be doing things that create value for their clients and for themselves. And so I was like, well, this AI can do this. Like, this is like easy money use case. And so I just put something together that it's effectively, it can run in Claude or Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever model. But I run it in Claude mainly, and Grok, because it's very research heavy. And I personally think Grok is the best for like doing research, usually mainly because it pulls from the X. It has a live pull from X or Twitter, and so it
Mm-hmm.
does research really well. But I mean, there's could be some other things. Somebody's gonna hear me say that and be like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe I don't. So
Comment below.
so I put that together, and I was like, oh, I'm going to productize this and take it to market. And with that, it was kind of like, a lot of people are building things, but they don't have any experience like actually talking with customers, because they've always been an engineer. I was like, well, this is kind of a cool combo for me, because I've always been like a geek and a nerd, but I also am outgoing and have been able to talk to people, and I've been doing it now professionally for a few years. So this is a nice pairing. And so, I mean, I'm still very early stage. I've had one client. I've got some meetings on the board. It's so weird. Booking meetings for yourself is so weird. Like, it's a very different feeling. It's like, when you book a meeting. When I booked a meeting as an SDR, I was like, yeah, this is hype. Let's go. Got my AE meeting. Like, it showed up in Slack. Like, everybody's getting hyped. I'm trying to book a record. Now I'm like, I need to eat food and pay off my debt. So I really, okay, great. I got a meeting. Yes, like,
Oh yeah, it's like
it's,
working from home. You turn around and you're like, I
oh,
right
we
back
said
on the
do that.
phone, I guess.
We lived with my parents when I was first in SDR, and I would book meetings, like they would hear, and then I'd be like reviewing them at dinner, and be like, guys, listen to this call, listen to this call.
Yeah.
I'd like get up and get all hyped, like I go like tell my wife, or like Mom, like, because my parents were like, Mom, let's book the meeting. Like, let's go. Like,
Wait
you
till your
gotta be
kids are
accessible.
talking. My daughter, I'll make her say like, "Mommy, did you get a contract back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, baby, I got a
Close one.
contract." She knows,
Close
like she knows.
one. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of what led me to do it. I was like, I think now is the time. I think we're really early. I have this desire to start something to serve people, and like I said earlier, I think building businesses or just like being a part of a business. It's really one of the best and most effective ways to serve people because it's a fair
Yep.
exchange of value. Like, hey, this creates X amount of value for you. You're willing to pay Y amount for it.
Yep.
This is great. Pleasure doing business with you. Like,
Yep.
I created value for you. You provided value back to me in the form of currency. And so, like, I just love that. I just do. I think it's great. Not everybody does. I think it is. And so I just like being a part of that. And I was like, now's the time. And the company I work for is gracious to let me step down to part time. So I still have income.
Nice.
I'm still providing value there, but also able to build so I can like bootstrap it. I don't have to take on debt. Or like, because I'm not building a company right now. As of now, like I'm not going to go like apply to Y Combinator. Like it's a service business. It's not a SaaS company. It could be a SaaS, but I don't think it's robust enough. That's the other thing is like I was I'm risk averse in that these frontier AI labs. You make a good enough use case, they're going to turn your use case into a button. So you've got a very short window. Like eventually, it's just going to be a button that they roll out, and so I just think it's good to like. I was like, I got to do it now because eventually Anthropic will be like, hey, this is a cool thing that guy's doing. Let's just do it too for everybody out of the box. And so now's the time.
Yeah, my husband said that to me this morning actually, because he was talking about one of the big investors that he works for a really big software company. And he was saying that one of the biggest venture capital firms, they have a team now where before they invest in a company, they'll just try to vibe code it. And they're
Yeah.
like, if we can vibe code this quickly, not that we're going to even turn it into a business. We just know we're not going to invest in yours. And I think what's really special about your story, John, is that you didn't set out to create something splashy and sexy. You saw a need and you wanted to remove friction for people who need to do hard work. And you had that empathy because your wife did it. And that makes sense, and I think a lot of that it reminds me of like the Parks and Recreation episode where he's like, my dry cleaning chemical holding company is doing really well. And it's like this isn't like soup, it's like it's not something where it's
Yeah.
like I my dream is to be a professional home organizer. And like my dream is to be so well off thanks to my CFO downstairs that I can give that as a service to people. Like I see these moms around town and I'm like, I know for a fact your kitchen cabinets make you want to off yourself. I know that they do. And I would love to be able to do that. But again, it's not a sexy business. So when you talk to founders that are like doing this back of the napkin math of like, well, if it's not $1 billion valuation, if you can't reach, $250 million of ARR, what's the point? And you're like, the point is to make enough money to take care of my family and help other people. That's the point. Like, that's like for me, like that's American. That's like
Yeah.
that's what we do here is like we open a fucking hardware store and we work there and our children work there and we're fine, And like I think that it's
Yeah.
challenging. I think that like having jobs that we have now, it's very liberating because we can be parents. We don't have to commute. We can do daycare drop off. We can do daycare pickup. David, you're going to be able to put blocks on your calendar when your wife gets pregnant and go to her doctor's appointments. Like
Yeah.
it's
That was
just
cool.
Buy her ice cream.
yeah, yes, yes. But careful. All I wanted was cinnamon toast crunch. Like it's very weird. But yeah, no, I think that what I love about the business that you started is that you saw a need, and I think that's like if you hear every person on Shark Tank that does well and everything, it's always just like I knew that this was necessary. I knew people, faces that I have hugged and shaken their hands that this will help.
Yeah.
And then serendipitously, it's making enough money that it makes sense for me to continue
Totally.
doing it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I love
So,
that.
so John, how do you? I think you said, I don't know if you said it before when we were chatting, but you said you're not really cold calling anymore. How do you go about like booking meetings and getting clients for the company?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I could afford to do some cold calling. Cold email has worked decently. It's a pretty small TAM. For anybody who doesn't know what that is listening, that's your total addressable market. So, the people you can actually serve and sell to. And
And
so,
how much they are willing to spend for your product.
yeah. And so it's pretty small. And so I've kind of like done things in early batches. Like, okay, like I have to test because like I have no data yet to be like, hey, here's what works, here's what doesn't. And so I've done like, like maybe 100 something at a time, 200 at a time. I do cold email. I'm decent at writing cold email, and they've worked. This last campaign I ran got like a 4 or 5% reply rate, which is pretty good.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and still working those leads. It's a new niche, like new niche to me, different niche. I don't know how like inundated they are. I think that it's pretty actually not saturated as far as like SaaS companies go. Like they don't have a bunch of like BDRs like or AEs hitting them up all the time. They probably get solicited for random stuff, right? And so, but the cold email's been okay. LinkedIn is starting to pick up pretty well. Like just like, and I've never been a LinkedIn outreach guy. Like I have so many friends who are like great at LinkedIn outreach. I like don't like it. Like I like not like don't like it. Like I think it's bad. Like I don't like it. Like I don't enjoy it. Like I'm like I don't know. Like it's just like I feel so corny doing it. Like I people are always like, don't pitch slap. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, but like I don't want to pretend to be this guy's friend. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, by the way, like I'd rather just go in and be like, look, I only connected with you because I want to sell you something. Like that, I'm just gonna be
Hey,
honest.
that's what Abhinav does. Hey, I'm calling to book a
Yeah.
call with you.
Yeah, yeah. I love that opener. I love that opener. Um, but I could afford to do some cold calling. But right now it's just been LinkedIn and cold email, and then referrals when I can get them. And I'll do some cold calling because the thing is I do love cold calling. Like when I catch a groove and like I'm going, I'm like I never want to stop. And the thing with with especially in B2B, like when you're cold calling and like you're having a good day, it's like I'm best to ever do it. Nobody better has ever picked up the phone. And then the next day it's like I suck. I have no idea how to cold call. Like, and it's just so up and down. But I do love the thrill of a good cold calling day.
Yeah.
So I probably need to do it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hop in a minute. I'm gonna let you two gentlemen continue the conversation because I'm gonna go be a mom. But you said B2B. That was something that I said I wanted to remember to chat
Yeah.
about. So there is a difference in selling and in entrepreneurship. Who are you building for? Who are you selling to? Are you selling to businesses or are you selling to people? And because the theme of this conversation is more philosophical than it is tactical, which I fucking love and appreciate, um, for me, I think the reason that I'm still an employee at a software company is because I have less guilt, shame, fear around selling to a business where the person who's signing the contract, that's not their money. So like I did some life coaching and some energy medicine and some Reiki and some career coaching. And again, for personal organizing, I've had maybe half a dozen people that have paid me actual money to reorganize their homes. But I found myself just literally not billing people. I would go and I would clean someone's garage and it would take me 10 hours and I'd be sweating like a fucking goat. And then they would say, okay, can I Venmo you? And it's like, we talked all day and I know they're kids now. And I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to take your money. So what advice would you give me, John, how do I take money from people? How do I see my own value? That's really the question.
That'd be a good clip. John, what
You know?
advice do you have on how to take money from people?
how do I have confidence in my own value and trust that the person that I'm dealing with isn't an idiot and that I'm not tricking them? You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's almost, now that I'm saying it out loud, disrespectful to be like, no, you didn't know what you signed up for, or like it almost feels silly now that
Well,
I'm saying it.
one thing I found in my career and just life so far when it comes to that, but a friend of mine said this to me, is like when he and I have done business together, like maybe I helped him with something or whatnot. He said, hey, contracts save friendships. Right. And so when you kind of just set it out in the beginning, like this
Mm,
is, let's come to terms here. Like we're friends. Like we don't want to have any kind of, money. When money gets involved, it really can muddy the water.
yeah.
And so like, let's just make it very clear in the beginning. Like I'm going to provide X service for you. It's worth X. And that's the deal. And that way, neither of us can have any kind of emotions about it. And so, I mean, I don't know, if I was giving you advice about that, it would just be like when you're doing that kind of service, like it would be, hey, let's just agree now. Like, and you could like be like, I would, if somebody was actually genuinely asking me, I'd be like, I would even take the approach and be like, honestly, like I've worked in like business to business my whole life. So like I've always dealt with one business billing another business, not people's personal finances. I feel kind of funny about it, but I do see it. This is valuable. Clearly you recognize that what I'm doing is valuable because you wanted me to come do it. Let's just like set the terms in the beginning. So so that I follow through on it and, make sure that I attach some kind of value to what I'm bringing. And then that way, what you're paying and there's no this weird awkwardness because I think that's what it is. It's just like as we talk a lot about like the exchange of value here, like I think it's important actually to do. Like I think it's really important to give and do things for free. Like I think it's important to serve people in that way. But I also think it's important to recognize when it's like, hang on, like this has a certain value, and in order for somebody else to realize that value, sometimes they do have to, like pay for it.
Totally.
And I think that those just few things like I mean, I can segue into kind of some of like the differences I saw in B2B and B2C. If that, I know you have to go in a second, but
Yeah, please.
just before you go, um, I went from selling software or booking meetings with restaurants and hospitality company or hotels or whatever it might be software. So it's like whatever. I don't care if I interrupt their day. It's just they're at work probably like whatever. To selling a program, educational program, to students. So I was either calling them or their parents, and generally it was inbound, right? Like I'm not, I'm not ripping lists as like 17-year-olds. Like I just can't. You just can't. No, it's like you're not going to get that anywhere. Otherwise, like if you do, you're either on a weird part of the internet,
Do not
or
call that list.
or you're like an accredited institution, like and you can get like the SAT list and stuff, and we weren't. So um, anyway, so inbound stuff, but when you're calling somebody for them, like soliciting them as an individual, I do feel that you have a burden to be extra respectful than you do even in a business to business, a B2B call,
Yeah.
because you are interrupting someone's personal day when you do that. And I think, like, it's like they don't have to answer. Like, that's the other thing is like, how'd you get this number? It's like, well, why'd you answer? If you're going to be like that, how about you just don't answer, block the number, and I won't call you again.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do think it is important to be kind of like maybe err even more on the side of respectful. I mean, both times you should, but even extra. And that's one of the big differences is just like it's a little scarier for them receiving the call. And I have, I mean, my voice fluctuates, but I have kind of a deep voice, especially when I cold call. Like it's just like the voice maybe I start off with, and so I like had to be aware of that. Like, okay, like if I'm calling some like 17-year-old kid, like I need to not sound like a scary person on the other side of the
Yeah.
phone. Someone's gonna, so like being aware of those things, and I think that was just one of the biggest things I saw is that like I think it's even more important to be focused on the service aspect when you're
Hmm.
talking to like people for their personal life, because it's like, hey, like especially in the business that I've been in, like in praxis is like, this is somebody who feels like they're just starting out like this next serious leg of their life, and they're making serious decisions, and this is a really big decision, and maybe they've not made that many big decisions, and
Yeah.
they're weighing college or this program or college or the trades. And so like I used to always take an approach there with where like I genuinely, maybe this is like a big Josh Braun thing, like detaching from outcomes, but like really just try to detach from the outcomes and focus really seriously on like how much do I care about this person, like do I like, and like like again like through Jesus, like like do I, like, Lord, am I talking to this person and thinking about them as you do? And I think even more so on the B2C side. And what was so important there was like I've had so many calls at Praxis, and I've done well here, but for the record, to nobody can be like, oh, that's why you haven't sold anything. I've done fine. But I've had so many calls where I probably just told people like, well, hang on, let's think this through. Like, Praxis really seriously might not be a great fit for you. Like, let's figure out like what your goals are. And we used to have like an interview process where we would interview students and things like that. And in those interviews, like I often would be like, well, just first of all, too, like it's totally okay if this isn't a fit. Like, I'll help you. I'll help you get clarity on things. I'll help you understand like maybe like where you're misunderstanding about how this works. I'll help you think through, some of these things. I'll help you stop making this such a big deal. Like, hang on, like try to de-risk it for you, like especially on the B2C side. Like I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Like with coaching the coaching students, one of the big things is because I suffered from this, like if you will, like I call it thinking in extremes, right? So you're making a
Mm.
decision,
All
and
or
that
nothing
decision
syndrome.
and that decision is really only pertinent to, let's say, 12 to 18 months of your life, but maybe not even consciously. You're thinking about it as if it impacts your entire life, at like wholesale, and that's something you have to really learn to undo. And so I often have told our students that, or people I've interviewed, like, hey, hang on, like, it's very tempting to think in extremes because this is like the first time you've made this sort of decision. It really, like, praxis, let's say, it's going to be a year for you. This is only pertinent to the next year. Like, so, like, let's say you're weighing this versus college. Just think about like the next year or two and how that affects it, and then in turn, the rest of your career, like, whatever job you get, like, don't think about like, oh man, next 40 years of my life. It's like, hang on, you're probably gonna work here for 6 to 18 months. So, like, slow it down. Like, only think about it for like, how does this impact the next 6 months of my life? And does this point me to a longer term goal? I know you have to go, and I'm rambling. I'm sorry, but
Oh my God, no. I mean, it's like a perfect little bow on everything we talked about too, where it's like it's that flex, right? Of like, yes, it's good to be aspirational. Like I'm writing 2 books right now, and one is called Zoom Out, because I feel like I get very hyper focused on like what does this represent? Am I, blah blah blah, and it's like just fucking zoom out for a second, like see the big picture. And then the other one is Look Up, because like all of these chapters I was writing, I was like, I have enough about God in here that he can have his own book. So like I think, yeah, a lot of it is just like said this to my I said this yesterday when I was about to hit my husband with a water balloon outside by the pool. I said energy flows where attention goes, and I just like stared at him. It was like, and I missed completely, honestly, flying an airplane. And it was a little bit demoralizing in front of my daughter. But yeah, I think it's like, where are you focused on right now? And like, if your eye is always on God or your why or on serving people, you'll trust that you'll move in the right direction if you just kind of like take your time a little bit.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I love your story. I'm so happy we did this. Keep
yeah,
talking. I love you guys.
great
Have
to
the rest
meet
of
you.
your night. You
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I'm sure we'll stay in touch. This has been
sure.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have fun.
Oh, did it not? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just have a couple more questions. I won't keep you too much longer, I promise. I do want to circle back a little bit just because I feel like it's super relevant for me and my fellow BDRs who, are hopefully moving into closing roles soon. What was it like when you did get into Praxis and you started like running deals and like kind of talk me through those first couple of deals that maybe you closed and or maybe even had like a couple hiccups with, like, what was that like? What was your thought process like?
Sure. I'll try to make it like a pretty comprehensive answer because I did move from B2B to a very different kind of B2C offering. So it's different. Like, a B2B cycle is going to run differently. But I think, when you move into like just closing calls, that's actually not, I didn't find that to be the crazy, like, hard part. I think like the biggest thing is the biggest challenges are when you're top of funnel and your whole job is top of funnel, like booking meetings and getting those on the calendar and following up and just making sure that they show up to the meeting. It's pretty singular. Like, it's pretty like, hey, like, this is all about this meeting, and then from there, I'm just hoping it's qualified, or however you get paid or somebody listening gets paid. Um, but I find that the after the fact is what's challenging because the closing conversations, like after you have a handful, they start to feel more natural. To ask certain questions and ask certain questions, not to like, oh, like I'm trying to like set this up, but ask certain questions like, no, I really need to dig into this. Like, I need to understand, is this a fit for them? And then by me doing that, it helps them say out loud the things that help them know that it's a fit for them. And so like those things sort of just start to come naturally with reps. I think the stuff after the fact is what's most challenging, is just making sure you're following up, and in a way that's not like, hey, just following up, hey, just following up. And that could just be hard. Like sometimes it's like, I think what sets you up for success in that part of the deal, probably in both, is setting clear next steps, like when you're with the person. And you've probably heard people do this. You do this when you're booking meetings, like hey, like, Since you're asking a few questions about pricing or about whatever, it probably just makes sense for me to set up a meeting with you and my partner. Um, Maddie's available at blah blah blah. Are you free Wednesday at 6 o'clock? And setting that meeting up, maybe booking it live on the call. You do all those things, but then when you're on like a closing call, it's just important. Like if the deal's not closing then and there, where it's like you're getting a verbal, send us the contract. I think it's just really important, like while you have them live on the call. And a friend of mine, James Buckley, does this really well. Who you've probably seen. He's with Sell Better. He hosts the Sell Better show. Um, he does this really well. Just like, hey, like same time next week, then, like, like just like having kind of like a go-to, like let's like keep an anchor. If we could just get an anchor, because once you lose somebody from a call, even if it's a good fit, they're interested, there's just less obstacle and friction and challenge for them to just put it off or just say no. And so if you get it and in there it's a fit, you believe it's valuable, you kind of clearly showed that they have interest. It's just good to be like, hey, let's get a loose calendar invite on for a follow up call. We'll add so and so they can be on here because you said that they needed to be kind of involved, and we can go through it live together. If we need to reschedule, it's not a big deal, but then at least we have something standing for all of us to have as an anchor. Like those are some of that's one of the things that just like it's just a little more involved, right? Like being full cycle. But I don't think I, I think it's some of it's a different skill set in that you almost have like because you have to get deeper on things than you do on a cold call or on a cold email or just booking a meeting. There's some of that's different, but it all translates. It's transferable. I don't want to ramble too much about it, but that's like one of the big things I think is like all of the just some of the extra steps that go into keeping it warm, right? Like just not letting it get cold.
Okay. No, I love that, and it's definitely something I'm seeing now because at the old place I worked, I only sat in on like maybe a few discovery calls, maybe like five total in 10 months, and at the current place I'm at, every single one we book, we have to sit in on the whole call and hand it off to the founder and
That's
everything.
cool.
So I'm seeing like literally what you're saying, like it's such a big deal at the end of the meeting to set those next steps because they do discovery on one call and then they don't do a demo on that call. They set that up
Yeah.
in the future. So I've seen somewhere like they kind of wanted the demo and then it got fumbled. Then I've seen the other thing where like the prospect was hesitant and they flipped it into like getting them in the calendar, and it makes so much sense. It's also kind of closely related when you were saying before how there's less friction in setting those next steps. It's kind of closely related to why cold calling is so powerful as a BDR versus cold emailing or LinkedIn, obviously depending upon the vertical and the
Yeah.
business you're in. But no, I love that answer. Um, Another thing I would ask is, like in your current state, you're a founder, you're running your own thing. What kind of advice would you give to maybe someone just getting started in sales who kind of dreams of doing that one day and is kind of just going into sales, maybe for hopefully the transferable skills that they could take with them to that? What kind of advice would you give that person just getting started?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know what? Maybe this is a little bit unorthodox. I would say document everything early and often. And it's really easy with AI now because you could build projects in your computer or whatever, and then you could go in and be like, hey, put this all together in like in one document so I have it. But I actually think that that's like my like weird like my like maybe somebody else wouldn't say this advice is that document everything because you'll want to be able to go back and cite from it, like when you're as you're building your career and looking to move into new spaces or into a new company or start something. It's nice to have that so you can be like, hey, this is what I've done so far. Here's like the arc of my career, like and like build up. That's like the biggest thing, honestly. I think a lot of people don't do that because like I do it. I'm pretty good about it now, but I haven't always been, and it's a regret of mine because not necessarily a regret, but it's just something I wish I had done better because it makes it so much easier to like think through things and kind of assess what a great next step in the path is for me, but also it helps with being able to present like yourself in an interview or if you're going to build a company like or whatever that is or an offer. And then the other thing I would say is like try not to take it like try not to get too obsessed with like the gurus and influencers, right? So like um, there's like the one side, like the Andy Elliott's of the world, or like more like car sales. And hey, honestly, like respect to Andy Elliott because he's masters his craft. I don't love like a lot of like the sales tactics and the style, but he's been like really outspoken about his faith and his testimony lately. So if it's sincere, like he's a brother in Christ, and so like I like respect to him. Like I've been hard on some of his content before, but I've been seeing that, and so like respect. And like Andy, like if you ever see me, like I'm sorry if I'm sorry that I've been hard on your content. Not that I'm, I don't have I have a very small fraction of a platform that you do, but there's that style, and there's like Josh Braun and whoever on LinkedIn. And I would say like take it all in if you want, but also remember that there's no silver bullet in sales. Like there's no one right answer. There are wrong answers. There are bad ways to do things, but there's no one right answer. And so like you said before, like cold email might work really well in a particular vertical. Cold calling has maybe the highest percentage of working across the board, but like you've been around long enough probably now to be like like cold calling is dead, cold email is dead. It's like all those like LinkedIn posts, and it's like it's not really. It's just like that's like nobody has it all figured out. There's no like there are people who are experts in this game, but there's no one master playbook that's the only way to do things and do it well and do it with integrity. So that's the other thing I would leave with somebody who's just getting started out.
I love it. And when you say document everything, what would be like an example of that as a BDR? Like, do you mean like your dials, your connects, your conversion rate, your show rate, like all that stuff, or is there
Honestly,
others?
yes, yes, and like talk tracks that you put together that you really like, or cold email campaigns you ran that you really liked, or things your coworkers like compliments your coworkers gave you, like so if you're internal, you're working for a promotion, like that help you build a case, or compliments that a customer gave you or a prospect gave you. Like even if you could stop keeping a tally of those things, even if it never becomes something public facing, it's great to have as like an internal for yourself. Like when you're doing a personal audit, like
Mhm.
okay, like here's like how far I've come. Like here's where I was 6 months ago, and here's where I am. Here's where I am now, and like I've made so much progress. And like if you don't document it, it's hard to do it because you're in the moment. Like you're just heads down, grinding, kind of in the trenches. And so I just think it's helpful to kind of like, like you can't like document like certain things that are like proprietary and like confidential, but like document like all those little things and write stuff down and kind of like sit with things and like do treat it like a craft, like like make it like don't just let it be a job, like don't let it be more than a job, don't let it become your life, in my opinion,
Mhm.
but like let it be something that you set out to like want to be great at, pursue excellence, like do everything to a degree of excellence, and let it become something that's like, hey, like I just want to be the best version of me that I can be at this, and every day I want to get the cliches. Like I could give you all the coaching cliches, or I get 1% better every day, but seriously, like those kinds of things, so that you can track though the progress you've made if you document your like all your stats, and things that are working, and really trying to understand, because then you can look back and be like, well, why did that work? Like why did that talk track work? What was it about that? What was it that what effect did it have? And it seems to have had that effect several times. Like those kinds of things. If you can document that, then you can better analyze what you're working on.
And something really great about documenting it is it takes a lot of the emotion out. I feel like maybe a year from now, if someone's going, like, say someone is killing it right now, they killed it for a year, but then maybe a year from now they're going through a rut. And usually when you're going through a rut, you get emotional, right? And you're not exactly thinking like logically or rationally. But if you have those like stats and data to go back to, you can remove that emotion and just say, hey, this is what I've done before. This is me, not whatever is happening right now. And I could get back to that if I, dissect that data and figure out what I.
Absolutely. Yeah, it keeps you more objective.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Another thing I want to ask you too is you said you're doing having a lot of success with cold email. Were you were you doing a lot of cold email as a BDR as well, or is that kind of like a new skill you've been
I
getting into?
I really like to write, and so the writing kind of translates there. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
a decent copywriter. Like I'm decent at being writing things that are written to sell something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've done cold email in different verticals. I've done some cold email at Praxis because I am actually I didn't touch on this much. I transitioned to a B2B seat at Praxis last year where I was just going and getting partners companies that wanted to partner with us and hire our students, right? So I got to switch back to the B2B world and we did some decent stuff with cold email and I just I find that it's always worth testing. There's a certain way to do it, right? You want to set up sending domains through some services and so that they're not going to you don't want to send just from your main email all that kind of stuff but what makes it successful I think is simplicity and clear like just clarity in the messaging something that like one of the things that's been working for me is like the subject line was like a fresh jump in assessment like it found a property and flagged a huge jump in the property's assessment. And then it's just like, hey, first name, like another firm handed me this. Here's what my system found. By the way, a PLIQ is XYZ. And then like, just testing different CTAs and like this one has seemed to do well, like so far, which is like, you know, I would love to show you or would love to, see if this could be helpful to you. You know, but you could test it. Like, why don't you send me, one or two addresses? I'll put it through the system and send you a sample on the house. Like, just having a free give is good. Sometimes asking for the meeting right away is good. Email is different than cold calling. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not like a cold email guru. I learned a lot from my friend Jed Marley, and for another friend Mitchell Earl. Like, I do like to give credit where credit is due to the people who have helped me, and so that's why though I think it's worked. It's just like it's a nice attention grabbing subject line. It's not misleading, and the CTA is a free give, and
So
it's kind of like
value.
that, and that starts a conversation. It's gotten more people to reply.
Hmm. And you said you kind of like hated LinkedIn outreach. What it like again? Like I don't really do well as far as like LinkedIn or cold email. Not that I like am heavily like doing a lot of either. I'm like 99% cold call. Um, what is it like? What's different about LinkedIn outreach versus cold email that you find like is tough for you?
I just think I think it's because of like like what LinkedIn kind of is. Like it's like sort of cringe. Like it's sort of a cringe platform. I really I like the
I
platform,
love
right?
the thing.
But you know what I mean? Like like corporate speak, and you get the automated in mails. And no offense to all my financial planning friends, but all the financial planners that are always DMing you, like like
Yeah.
it's just a different kind of space, and I have just not mastered it. I have friends that do really well, and I think what works well for them and what's worked well so far for me with the new business is like very casual, kind of short messages. Um, and I don't know. I guess it's like I'm so used to cold email, and that's probably what it is. Whereas like LinkedIn DMs, like I feel like this is what it is. If I was selling to salespeople, I'd be LinkedIn DMing all day
Yeah.
because it's like that's like a game for us. We kind of just give each other meetings because we want to help each other out. Like it's you know easy. But I'm selling to a vertical that's like I don't know how much like outreach they're getting and receive how much outreach they're receiving and they're less likely to respond and so I don't know quite know what it is. It's just like the vibe of it. I feel not that I feel like I'm not that great at it right now.
A good thing. Have you ever heard of Goji Berry AI?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever played around with that?
No, I just heard of it. I see the founder on X all the time like posting.
Yeah, I currently use it in the current space I'm in. I literally haven't booked any meetings from it. I've been at this new job for 7 weeks now, but at like my old job, which was in like the DOT, like Department of Transportation compliance, I did book some like a few meetings from it. And what was nice, I don't know like what kind of show rate you had when you were a BDR, But these people are like the best prospects, man. When they say yes to a meeting, they show up 5 minutes before. You don't even have to confirm them, like nothing. They say yes and
That's
they're ready to go.
that's
But it's
super
just,
cool.
yeah, like it's nice because it's super customizable. So you could make it like super direct about asking for the meeting. You could make it, more conversational. And then once you step in, it kind of cuts out. But it kind of takes out like a lot of that manual process that probably someone like yourself finds miserable. And I would too, because I really never did any
Yeah,
LinkedIn outreach, um,
yeah,
or, or someone like yourself could even maybe play around with Claude enough to code something like that
yeah.
yourself and make it your own.
Yeah, that's what, that's the other thing with LinkedIn is I'm so scared of getting banned because they're like such sticklers about automations that I just get like I get worried. That you're usually good. Like all those most of those tools are usually fine. I just have
Yeah.
like overly cautious about it for some reason. But yeah, I'm gonna take a look at that though, dude, because there's some other good ones. But I should look into that one because I've seen it. You mentioning it. It's like another instance. I should check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth exploring. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you today, man. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? Any advice to BDRs, founders, AEs, salespeople, aspiring salespeople, anything like that?
Man, I would just say if it's something that you've had on your mind, your heart, or whatever for a while, and like you really feel like it's something you're supposed to do, like just dig in, right? And because it's to me, I consider it such a blessing to have been able to been in the career path I'm on and have been in because I love that my inputs have have directly impacted my outputs for
Hmm.
most of my career at this point, or at least I mean I've been blessed and beyond belief in ways that like I didn't deserve, but also that I love the idea and the concept of like I put in this kind of value, I get out this kind of value, and I am wired that way. And so if you're feeling like that and you feel like this is something you really want to get into, particularly like whether that if that's tech or something adjacent to tech or whatever it is, if you feel like you can do it with integrity, you feel like you can do it at a high level, and that you could pursue doing it at a high level, and you're willing to be like learn and coach and not just let it be like clock in clock out, but something that you make a craft like as if you're an athlete. uh, just embrace the journey. That's it. I don't want to get too like guru-y on you, like sales guru. Like I'm not a guru, so uh, but I would leave with that. I would definitely leave people with that.
I love it, man. I think that's great advice, especially the integrity part, because you and I both know there's people in sales that give us a bad rap and are snake oil salesmen and make people
Yeah,
kind of just hate salesmen. So the integrity is and like you want to believe in what you sell, because otherwise you're probably not going to do a good job selling it
yeah,
either.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
But yeah, guys, if you found any value out of today or you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to come on the show or you have any ideas for another episode, comment below. And yeah, thank you so much again, John, for coming on the show. We
Thanks,
appreciate you.
Adam. Appreciate it.
Take care.